Let's start here with the Cincinnati Bengals. I want to start with Geno Stone and some comments that Al Golden made. And I want to tee this up by basically pointing out the obvious, and that is that Geno Stone, you can make the argument it's Barrett Carter, but he's one of the two worst players on this team, certainly one of the worst two starters on this team as well. And I've mentioned this several times on the show. I will never understand, looking back at the 2025 Cincinnati Bengals, why he played as many snaps as he did. Why he had opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to be a starter on this team when it's not just bad play. The effort hasn't always been there from Geno Stone. When you are a bad tackler and you're just kind of lowering your shoulder and bumping into guys, that's not good, especially at the safety position. If you want to be a guy like that at corner and you cover well, fine. But at safety, you better be willing to tackle and you better be good at it, and Geno Stone is not. Hand up accountability. When the Bengals went out there in free agency and brought in Geno Stone, I was like, let's go, right? You need somebody to fill that void. Haven't been able to fill it, of course, since Jesse Bates left. He's balling still, and Atlanta had an incredible game once again against Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams on Monday Night Football. But I was all in. It was a 2-year deal. You know, it seemed like it was relatively team-friendly. I believe it was $14 million when he initially signed it a couple of off seasons ago. But also, all I had known about Geno Stone was his performance, for the most part, against the Cincinnati Bengals, and he was elite against the Bengals. Remember, he picked off Joe Burrow in one of those games at Paycor Stadium, basically won the game. It was in the red zone there as well. And it's like, oh, we get him on our team now? Let's go. Sign me up. But you also have to understand that he was a day 3 pick. Something in the moment I didn't entirely process, and now we're seeing why he was a day 3 pick. Can't remember if it was the 6th round or the 7th round, but it's one of the two. And when you're, getting that kind of money on a second contract and you were picked in that spot of the draft, red flags should go up a little bit. And I've always said this about players in the National Football League. If there is a player that goes through his rookie contract with a particular team and that team opts not to bring him back, that should raise some concern. Your alarm bells should be going off in your head a little bit, saying, well, if this team that knows everything there is to know about this player, was here for 4 years, is no longer interested in having a relationship going forward where they're a player on this team, then why should I be super interested in that happening? Especially if I don't know the player and I can watch the tape and I don't know his game as well as the team in which he was drafted by. It should always raise alarm bells. If you want to be good in this league, you better draft well and you better develop well, right? You're not going to build your rosters around free agency. Can you hit in some key spots, get some key players on short-term deals? Yes. But the alarm bells for the Bengals should have went off. I was like, well, Baltimore is going to let this guy go. He's played so well against us, and we can sign him for $14 million. Like, oh, it feels like we're getting a diamond in the rough here. I fell for it. A lot of people in the fan base fell for it as well, but it became very evident early on that this thing was not going to go well. Literally from his first game here with Cincinnati, I was like, oh, that wasn't good. And the next game, oh, that wasn't good either. And all of a sudden you put together a bad year, and we're all sitting here saying, he's got to go. I get it's a 2-year deal, but he's got to get cut. You have to cut bait. You have to move on. You have to get a new guy at this position. Bengals didn't. They ran it back, got same results. Probably arguably even worse results. I think it just stuck out more like a sore thumb because you needed him to have a bounce-back year, and he didn't. And now here you are with Geno Stone continuing to get lots of reps out there. But Al Golden, Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator, he made some comments, some interesting comments, and I'm just going to go ahead and read the direct quote here on the show. This is what Al had to say about Geno Stone. The success that we've had in whatever it is, the final 8 games, a lot can be attributed to Geno. I think he's been a really good leader for us, Golden said. I think his communication is exceptional. I think he gets us in the right defense when we need to be in the right defense. I think Jordan, Geno, myself included, would all say, man, we'd like to have one play back here and there, but get in line. That's me included in terms of putting the guys in the best position possible. Who wouldn't want to have a play call back? So again, I think he's improved from last year, and I'm always looking at the positive, and I see a path forward for him to get better, continue to improve, and we're going to keep coaching him. Pretty alarming when you hear something like that from Al Golden, right? And we talked about this on Off the Bench. I want to rehash it a little bit here on this show. I can respect Al Golden for saying those things from a human standpoint, right? We all sit here and we rip apart Geno Stone. Everybody in the local media is doing it. Everybody in the national media that spends a minute or two talking about the Cincinnati Bengals is doing it as well. I'm sure it is very difficult for him to get up and continue to come in and continue to give it his best effort and continue to earn being on the field. We all scratch our heads like, how the heck is he on the field? Well, according to the coaching staff, he's earned it, right? And I can only imagine what he is going through off the field. I mean, we're ripping him apart in the media, but the people are crazy in this world. We understand that. I'm sure he's getting crazy threats that are just ridiculous and an embarrassment to the human beings out there that are doing it. But I'm sure it's been really awful for Geno Stone. And as a human, I can say, you know what, I feel for you there. I really do, right? And Al Golden's probably trying to throw him a bit of a bone here and basically say that, you know what, he still has a chance in this league, right? Kind of giving a signal out there to the other 31 teams, like this guy can still play quality football and he can find a landing spot somewhere else at the end of this year. He appreciates his effort. And from a leadership perspective, directional standpoint, as far as, communicating and making sure guys are lined up in the right spots, maybe that is really valuable, because that's not the first time we've heard this about Geno Stone, right? Zach Taylor has said this in the past there as well, and people like you and me, and maybe there's some people out there watching that are football gurus. I love the game. I've been talking about the game, watch the game a lot, but look, I'm not a personnel, technique, coaching mastermind, right? I don't think many of us are. So maybe he is bringing great value when it comes to that. But for all of us that have just been watching the games, clearly the talent level is not there. And then a lot of times the effort level, right? Again, if you're just going to kind of run over to someone, lower the shoulder, kind of bump into them, that ain't acceptable at the safety position. And that's something we've seen from Geno Stone. So maybe this is just Al Golden sitting there saying, trying to get him another job for next year somewhere else, or appreciating all that he has gone through. Again, I'm sure it has been just a heck of a time for Geno Stone when he's out in public. I'm sure it is very awful and very difficult to deal with. But at the same time, that's kind of what you sign up for, right? If you want to play professional sports and you're going to be a professional athlete that is a starter somehow on a team, and you're going to play that bad, it's going to be ugly for you. He's not getting the contract that Joe Burrow's getting, but he's still a millionaire. Right, he's still making millions of dollars playing a game. That's just kind of what comes with the territory. But I would hope this is just Al Golden showing his appreciation for what Geno has been through this year, what he has done, his willingness to show up and continue to work despite the lack of success he has had. Also, his willingness to restructure his contract. Didn't have much of a choice, but, fair play to him, understanding he didn't play well last year, didn't deserve the amount of money that Cincinnati was supposed to be paying him, took a pay cut going into this year. I can respect all of those things. And honestly, hopefully he lands on his feet somewhere else. But this better not be a situation, and he mentioned in the quote about continuing to coach him. You better continue to coach him here for a couple days and then stop coaching him, right? Because there's no world where he can be back on this roster next year. It can't happen. It can't happen. I don't care if it's a rotational role. I don't care if he's the last guy that makes the team and is just kind of not a starter, but he's on the team and he's on the bench. Can't happen. You have to cut bait. He has to be on a different team next year, or be looking for a different profession if we want to be candid here, and you have to retool that room. I would do it with both safeties. They're going to hang on to Battle. People within the team like Battle. They picked Battle in the 23 draft. He's still on his rookie deal. They're going to move forward with him. But he needs a new running mate, because it cannot be Geno Stone. So I hope this is just Al Golden putting on his nice guy hat, right, and showing his appreciation for the work behind the scenes that Geno has done, apparently the selflessness that he has showed. But this cannot be something, we're going to continue to coach this guy. Yeah, you can continue to coach him for a couple more days here, Al, and then you're going to stop coaching him, right, hopefully. Assuming you're going to be back as the defensive coordinator, he can't be on this team. That is obvious to all of us, and it should be very obvious to everybody within the Bengals organization. So a little bit alarming to hear Al say these types of things. Again, human to human. I hear you. I get it. I can respect it. I can appreciate it. But continue to coach him. No. You're running out of time. You got a few hours left of coaching him. You got a handful of practices left when you're coaching him, because you better not going to be coaching him next year. And if you are, it better not be in the city of Cincinnati, right? So that was some alarming comments there from Al. But, this is a Bengals. It kind of gets it from Zach Taylor, right? People bang on Zach Taylor all the time. And I watch these head coaches do these press conferences, and Aaron Glenn just throws up on himself seemingly every time he's at the podium. Sirianni just won a Super Bowl, but sometimes he is like, dude, what are you doing? You can make the argument that Zach, out of all the head coaches in the National Football League, handles things the best at the podium. And I get people get frustrated with the things he says, but as far as just remaining calm, taking ownership. He just always he says the right things, and some people hate that about him. But when you want to hear what Aaron Glenn's saying, that guy, he's off his rocker and honestly should be fired in New York, right? You want to hear what guys like Nick Sirianni are saying there as well, or some of these other teams that are losing, right? And, to what the organization asks Zach to do, they don't just ask him to be the head coach. He's the puppet for the organization that has to answer to all of Duke Tobin's shortcomings and wrongdoings, and the organization's there as well. So Zach handles it perfectly. I think part of the reason why he likes Al so much is they're probably very, very similar. Al, for the most part, has always said the right things. When he gets the opportunity to talk, he doesn't, have the press conference, but the beat reporters talk with him, and you can hear certainly his comments out there as well. But I hope that's just Al being a nice guy and saying, we respect everything that he's done and how hard he works, but this can't be a relationship that continues. We all understand that. All right, other player here I want to talk about is Amarius Mims. And Paul Dehner Jr. of The Athletic, friend of the show, does great work covering the Cincinnati Bengals. He released a piece this morning just specifically on Amarius Mims. And I've said this several times already on this show. Duke Tobin deserves all the bullets that are coming his way. Really does. And all the difficult questions that he'll have to answer whenever the next time he steps to a podium is. But he got this pick right. And Amarius Mims has been terrific. The growth that we have seen from year 1 to year 2. And I think a lot of people kind of forget, that was a risky pick too. I mean, obviously the Shamar Stewart pick was a risky pick, and that's blown up in your face. But this is a guy in Amarius Mims that had only started 8 games collegiately at Georgia. And you got Nick Saban, who there's nobody more that I respect in sports than Nick Saban. On draft night was basically I don't know about his willingness to play through injury, right? Basically calling out his toughness. And if you're an offensive lineman that's getting picked in the top 20 in the NFL draft, you better be tough. And, he got banged up last year and certainly showed that, and missed some time. It was okay, is he going to be able to play through injury? Is he not? And when you, especially at this position on the offensive line, when you have a guy that's that big and is that strong and has the ceiling that he has, these guys all have to play through injury. And it's crazy hearing these stories about these offensive linemen, right? I bet, what Ted and Orlando and Fairchild and what these guys are dealing with right now at this stage of the year, all around the league too, not just these guys, is probably hard to even fathom for you and me, the injuries that these guys are currently playing with. And for the most part, they don't even pop up on the injury report. Right, but they're getting in a car crash each and every play with a huge human being on the other side. But something that Amarius needed to understand was that him at 65, 70% is better than the next guy at 100%. Just the way it is along the offensive line. And these guys play hurt all the time. And I think he's done a better job of that this year. He's had to leave the field for some snaps. When you take a look at some of the PFF grades, what he's doing as far as guys in his draft class here at that position recently, top of the line, he's been tremendous. Only a handful of pressures that he has given up. And when he's out there and when Joe Burrow's out there, which is only a small sample size, of course, with Burrow missing all that time, but Burrow doesn't get hit from that side when Amarius Mims is out there. And another very noteworthy aspect of the game was that Amarius Mims, there was a period in the Arizona game where he had to come out. And he was on the sideline, and I think it was a shin injury or something. Perhaps, I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but he was a little bit banged up, was stressed, didn't have his helmet, and it was he's probably going to be done for the game. And then Cody Ford's going out there, and then people forget because Cody Ford had the reception, and that was awesome. When Cody Ford was playing tackle in the game against Arizona, it was not good at all. And Burrow had those back-to-back sacks, and Amarius wasn't out there, and it was oh boy, right? And then Mims checks back into the game, definitely very hurt. Right, if he was without his helmet on the sideline, says, you know what, screw it, I'm getting back in the game, and then Burrow, no issues there on that side of the offensive line going forward. So the offensive line is fascinating. I think there's a lazy narrative. There's a couple of lazy narratives that people pin on the Bengals organization just because, it's kind of a joke how they operate. We all get that. But this notion that, Burrow, he doesn't have an offensive line. I understand when they went to the Super Bowl in 21, that was heroic, what Joe Burrow was able to do. But these past few years, it has incrementally gotten a little bit better. And we've talked about this a lot there as well. Some of the sacks are on Joe Burrow. Some of the hits he takes are on Joe Burrow. And people around the league will tell you that know what they're watching, right? But there's a narrative from the national media. they don't pay their offense. Their offensive line sucks. They don't want to help Burrow. It's a disgrace of an organization. Some of those are valid points. But this offensive line this year, and we had worries about it going into the season. We really did. This offensive line has really done a nice job. Now, I think there's a lazy narrative. There's a couple lazy narratives that people pin on the Bengals organization just because, it's kind of a joke how they operate. We all get that. But this notion that, Burrow, he doesn't have an offensive line. I understand when they went to the Super Bowl in 21, that was heroic, what Joe Burrow was able to do. But these past few years, it has incrementally gotten a little bit better. And we've talked about this a lot there as well. Some of the sacks are on Joe Burrow. Some of the hits he takes are on Joe Burrow. And people around the league will tell you that know what they're watching, right? But there's a narrative from the national media. They don't want to help Burrow. It's a disgrace of an organization. Some of those are valid points. But this offensive line this year, and we had worries about it going into the season. We really did. This offensive line has really done a nice job. Now, I expect them to struggle on Sunday. They always do against Cleveland, regardless of what the lineup is out there. I don't think Joe Burrow's gonna get hit a little bit in this game, and that scares all of us. We understand that. But there's a real conversation going forward because you're gonna have OBJ for one more year. He started out the year horridly. Has been fine ever since, has been solid, has been stable at that left tackle spot. Lacks athleticism, but he's a huge dude, strong dude, and he's played well, especially since Joe's come back. Left guard, I think, is your weak link right now, but I think Fairchild, I would imagine he's really banged up here at this point. Fairchild has progressed. That was my favorite pick of the draft when they took him. I still stand by that, considering how bad the first two picks were. He's going to be a guy going forward. He's going to be your starter next year. The availability for him has been great. He's been nicked up a little bit, but for the most part has been available. That's huge. At that position, you got Ted under contract for one more year there as well. And with two of your starters going into their final year of their deals next year, that would make me think about giving Dalton Risner a one-year deal to come back. Right? And I think at some point he's going to fall off. That's why I would only give him a one-year deal. I mean, there was a reason why he was on the street when you got him. But, I mean, you threw him into the fire when Lucas Patrick got hurt in the first game of the year against Cleveland. And it was, some growing pains there initially. And then, obviously, when they had the backup quarterbacks in there, they wanted to see what Rivers had. But once, there was the end of the Flacco, and once Burrow was back, it was like, all right, we need Risner out there. And he's been terrific. So when you have two of those guys entering the final year of their deal, you have a guy on a rookie contract or two guys on a rookie contract, and Amarius Mims and Fairchild. This feels like the time where it's like, you know what? We have stability here in Risner. We know at some point he's going to fall off, but let's bring him back. A one-year deal, and let's run it back with this offensive line. We joke about the Bengals always wanting to run it back with their roster, and it's not a good thing, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. I think your offensive line this offseason, you want another depth piece? Sure. But I think these guys can be your starting five next year. I really do. Again, they're probably going to end the season on a not-so-high note. It's Cleveland. They're ferocious up front. They got the best defensive player in my lifetime in Myles Garrett. It happens. It's going to be difficult. But kind of where the contracts are for these guys on the rookie deals, of course, there as well. I think you have an opportunity here to kind of use this same offensive line next year and then figure out how you're going to go going forward after that. But Amarius Mims has been terrific. He's been absolutely unbelievable, and he's the kind of guy easy to root for. I don't know if you've heard. I know he's a tackle, but when he speaks to the media, it's great. He lights up the room, got a smile on his face, physical dude, clearly has a lot of pride when it comes to protecting Joe Burrow, and that's something that's important to have if you're an offensive lineman. Understand that you are protecting the franchise, and that is your duty. He understands that, and he brings that mindset to the field and to the work each and every day, and that's awesome. And what Scott Peters said, offensive line coach for the Bengals, that we need him to play through some injuries, kind of the point I was saying. 70% Amarius Mims, better than 100% Cody Ford. That's just facts, right? And he's done a better job of that. You saw it when he was out, and he came back in against Arizona and played great, clearly banged up there as well. He's awesome. I think at some point he'll probably play right tackle one more year, but when it's time for OBJ to leave, I mean, there'll be some questions on who to draft, who to bring in, what have you, but I think they're probably going to ask him to move over to that left side. And I think that at this point, that is absolutely the right call there as well. So it's been good to see the growth of him. Tobin deserves some credit for that. Again, he wasn't a surefire pick. That was the guy that I wanted a couple of years ago in Amarius Mims, but there was some risk there. Only started 8 games at Georgia, had the injury history, and there was risk with Shamar Stewart. That blew up in their face. The Amarius Mims pick is a great pick, and he's going to be a great player on this team going forward.